So, for everybody here, I have copy-pasted the entirety of the Unearthed Arcana, basically all the important parts, and then put it onto my very special OneNote that lets me look at everything side by side. So I hope this is good for you guys. If it isn't, please let me know. In this Unearthed Arcana, they mention 3 races. First is... Oh, welcome. Oh, thank you. Dang, that's a lot. Thank you so much. Thanks, Cthulhu. you reached the top slot again. I appreciate you as always. Being a warlock is hard these days, so I don't blame you. Where was I? Right, Ardling. So the Ardling and the Dragonborn were first featured in previous Unearthed Arcana. They were featured in Unearthed Arcana 1, the Ardling being the first new... Wait, let me see if I can get this into your view. There you go. Perfect. The Ardling being an entirely new species introduced to D&D 5th edition. Again, I'm going to say species because as of this Unearthed Arcana, they have retired the word race and implying how to distinguish between one person or another, and are using the term species, which is more politically appropriate. And I don't mind that. I think it's going to take a bit used to getting used to the word species. It might take a little bit of time, but you know what? That's fine to me. The Ardling is one of the ones that was rewritten for this Unearthed Arcana, as well as the Dragonborn, which was also in UA number 1. Both of these received less than positive reviews. Well, it was still positive, like 70%-ish positive or approval rate, which is good enough, but apparently not good enough for Wizards of the Coast. So they've gotten entire revisions, which is very exciting. Wait, let me read Cthulhu's message. I didn't get a chance to see it. It's been a while since I've been at your stream. Expanding an Elder's Cult is very time consuming, but I love feedback. I hope you're doing well. I have been. I will remind you again that Wiv is too young to accept an Eldritch Pact. When he becomes of age, he will certainly look into it, but for now, he's not allowed to. So we're keeping your offer in mind, the old God Cthulhu. But for now, we'll keep him away from making too many packs at too young of an age. Thank you, Jason, for the $5. Ardling for the furries out there. You know what? I've thought about that. And listen, I'm just happy to have some content from the Beastlands. The Beastland is a plane outside of the material that literally never gets touched on, especially in 5th edition. So finally, something gets to come from this plane that is like an infinite forest, an infinite jungle of just the meanest monsters out there. So finally, we already had a ton of celestial representation. The Ardling gets a little bit of a taste of a plane that hasn't been mentioned much before. So I do want to get into it for people that are waiting. In fact, Pact of the Fae are for kids. The Fae are kind of creepy, I'm not going to lie. Anyway, let us talk how to play as Wiv, Dragonborn or Ardling. Wiv is a Wyvern. I don't think he's a Dragonborn. Pretty sure he's not a Dragonborn. He hasn't told me otherwise. And he's not an Ardling because I don't know if a dragon is a choice for Ardling. But anyway, let's get into it. Ardling was first featured in Unearthed Arcana number 1 as the premier new race for the player's handbook. Originally, it was listed as the counterpoint to the Tieflings. The Tieflings were expanded to represent all 3 of the different lower planes, which are which are the 9 hells, which are the Abyss, and I believe Gehenna is the middle one. Someone can correct me if it's not. And the Ardlings were to represent the 3 upper planes, which is Arborea, Isgard, and Beastlands as the Exalted, Arcadia and Mount Celestia and Bytopia as the Heavenly, and the Beastlands and Bytopia as Idyllic, somewhere in the middle. They also had heads resembling that of an animal with virtuous associations, yada yada. So they were kind of like semi-Aasimar in terms of aesthetic, but also tapping into this bestial form. And the major criticism, I believe, was that they got way too many, they were trying to do too much. And a lot of what they were trying to do was already done by the Aasimar. So instead of bringing the Aasimar to the player's handbook, they made this. And originally they had these features. And by the way, for people who aren't used to my content, green is new stuff, orange and or red is stuff that has been replaced. And if you can look, this is, remember, the right side is UA number 1, the left side is UA number 3, and basically everything got removed. All of this from the Ardlings has been erased and removed. So they're bringing in something entirely different for UA number 3, which is very funny. Originally, they had a bonus action flight, which was nice for 1 turn. They had the Celestial Legacies that gave them certain spells at 1st, 3rd, and 5th level, and they had resistance to radiant damage. Now, all of that is gone. Cool. Nice. The new Ardling. As I read this, I want to read this. Celestial animals roam the Beastlands, a plane of untamed beauty and wild nature. Why there's no module for the Beastlands, I will never be able to explain. Many of those otherworldly animals serve the beast lords, and in the early days of the multiverse, some of the animals evolved into bipedal forms. Among their number are Ardlings, people with beast-like heads, keen senses, and an innate connection to divine magic. Long ago, the ancestors of Ardlings migrated to the material plane, and Ardlings can now be found on many worlds. An Ardling has a head resembling that of an animal. Depending on the animal, the Ardling might have fur, feather, or scales, some little or some others hulking. Ardlings are as varied as the animals they resemble. Now, from a logistics perspective, the number of times that the Wizards of the Coast have been asked to include a dog race, right? And everybody, then they're always like, where's the dog race? There's a dog race. And Wizards of the Coast says there's a shifter, but that's not good enough. The shifter is only animalistic or bestial a minute per day, right? Or only so many times per day. Now you could look like that all the time. And let's see the examples they have here. The only thing that hasn't changed for Ardlings is their size, speed, and lifespan. But instead of having this celestial legacy, they have animal ancestry, and you have descended from a celestial animal, presumably from the Beastlands, grouped into these 4 categories: climber, which is bear, cat, lizard, squirrel; flyer, which is bat, eagle, owl, raven; racer, which is deer, dog, horse, triceratops. Now, for the record, these animals are only suggestions. They're not the only animals you could choose. And swimmer, crocodile, dolphin, frog, shark. Your head will look like one of these. So if you want to play a triceratops bipedal man, it's canon, guys. It's canon now. You could do that. It's totally optional. It's totally optional. But let's see what they can do individually. The climber. You have hooked claws, sharp nails, or a serpentine tail. You have a climb speed equal to your speed, and once per turn when you deal damage with an unarmed strike, you can increase the damage by an amount equal to your proficiency bonus. So once per turn, if you punch somebody, not using your weapon, you punch somebody, or kick or headbutt with your weird animal head, you deal +2 to 6 damage, which is not bad. It's okay. I mean, it's not game breaking, it's not wild, but you know, that's not bad. An unarmed strike is very flexible nowadays. You could use it to do damage, you could use it to grapple, but whenever you deal damage with it, you get this little of a bonus once per turn, which is nice. You know, it's cozy. At level like 13 plus, you're doing +5 damage every turn. That's pretty solid. And you have a climb speed equal to your walking speed, and climb speed is always a good thing to have. So I think that's neat. Flyer, you have vestigial wings. As a result, you can fall when you fall at least 10 feet. You can use your reaction to safely glide downward, taking no damage from the fall. In addition, when you take the jump action, you can flap your wings to gain advantage on that action's ability check. Let's do the first part. The first part is actually very reminiscent of the Owlin. The Owlin had that feature in the UA where you could use a reaction to cancel the fall. And now I believe the Hadozi has something like this, where if they fall, they can use a reaction to safely glide downward. I know that Hadozi is redacted lately, but you know, still a thing. In addition, when you take the jump action, jumping is now an action, which is strange. I still have to wrap my head around that. You can flap your wings to gain advantage on that action's ability check. Jumping is now a proper ability check. It's an athletics or acrobatics check, and it depending on how well you roll, you can jump that far or half of that far vertically. Pretty useful if you plan on jumping, but if that's not part of your game plan, flyer's okay. Racer. When you take the dash action, your speed increases for that action equal to 10 times your proficiency bonus. So whenever you take the dash action, notice that the dash action also applies to the cunning action of the rogue. So as a bonus action, you could do this. You can add 10 times your proficiency bonus, which is the range of 2 to 6, which means you could add +20 to +60 to any dash action you do. That's pretty sick. I don't know if there's any builds that work around that very well, but adding a +40 to +50 somewhere in the mid levels of D&D is crazy far. It's very, very good. It's not gonna break any combats, but it certainly will surprise your DM when you're able to do this. And please, Triceratops, man, come on, that's a winner. Yes, yes, I roll 37. Only when you try to jump more than 10 feet. We can look at jump rolls later. We can go over that again. That's very funny. And then swimmer, you can hold your breath up to an hour at a time. You got a swim speed equal to your speed, and you have resistance to cold damage, which is pretty good. Cold damage is not too common of a damage type. It's behind fire, poison, and I think it's third. I think it's pretty sure it's third after that. But in terms of the common damage types of enemies, so this is not bad. Obviously, swim speed is amazing, and you can hold your breath up to an hour at a time, so you're not permanently underwater. Good stuff. Very reminiscent of like things you can get from like wild shape. No, it's not. That's actually a really bad comparison. There's a very shifter vibe to this, but it was different enough that you can't really compare them one to one, which is wonderful. By the way, the Beastlands is still a celestial plane, so we have divine magic, which gives you the thaumaturgy spell, which is great. This is usually something specifically for the tieflings. We've seen that in the tiefling in the player's handbook. And whenever you finish a long rest, you can place that with a different 0-level spell from the divine spell list. The 0-level spell is kind of a new term they're bringing back to say more and more, so people don't get confused with the word cantrip. Cantrip is kind of an unintuitive word for people new to D&D. The divine spell list of 0-level spells, which are basically just divine cantrips, are Guidance, Light, Resistance, Sacred Flame, Spare the Dying, and Thaumaturgy. Guidance is pretty good. Resistance, surprisingly very good now. We'll go into that later. Light, obviously fantastic. Sacred Flame is good. Thaumaturgy, obviously very flavorful. And I don't know if Spare the Dying's been changed, but it might be good soon. Very interesting. And then obviously, because you're part beast-ish, you get Keen Senses, which gives you proficiency in the perception skill. So, looking at the Ardling, again, everything's changed. They literally replaced the entire species with something else, which is really funny to me. And that's just kind of how turnover works, which is good. It bodes well that Wizards of the Coast is not afraid to just scrap everything and try again. And hopefully people like this later. I do like this direction way more. It feels like it's less ASMR. Like all of these are familiar to me, and they don't inspire anything in me to do anything different. At least these are exciting. Like I finally get to think about, hey, what if I really wanted to play like a deer dude or a crocodile face? You know, like it gets the imagination flowing, which is more than enough for me. Obviously, this does not exist in the player's handbook, so there's nothing from 5th edition to compare to. Now, let's keep going. Unless people have questions about the Ardling, we'll keep going down to the Dragonborn. Now, the Dragonborn has had so many iterations since its inception. The Dragonborn was in the player's handbook in 2014. It was in the Critical Role book as the Dragonite, and Draconblood, I believe. It was Ravenite and Draconblood, something like that. And then there was obviously the Fizban's variants, and then it came again in the Unearthed Arcana number 1 of OneD&D, and now it's back for Unearthed Arcana number 3. You can fit so many changes on this bad boy. That's exactly right, Fernando. Fantastic. Made just to annoy artists that make fan art for PCs. LOL. That's very true. So let's go into the Dragonborn and the reason why they changed it, because there's a very obvious reason. If you look at the Dragonborn's history, the original Dragonborn from the player's handbook was, suffice to say, underwhelming. The breath weapon did basically no damage, was more or less useless past level 5, gave you 1 resistance, 1 language, and that's it. And that's all they did, right? And eventually that was improved. If we look at the Fizban's Dragonborn, they get this wonderful breath weapon that scales much better, first and foremost. It scales better past level 5. It only replaces 1 attack on your attack action rather than your whole attack action, which is great because then you could punch and then breathe. And they had 3 variants, which was gem, metallic, and chromatic. So there was a lot of variants to that, and the Fizban's Dragonborn was overall very well received, which was exciting. So with that in mind, when Unearthed Arcana Dragon... Oh, let me slip over, make sure. There it is. When Unearthed Arcana Dragonborn came out, when Unearthed Arcana number 1 came out with their Dragonborn, they scrapped that. For whatever reason, they got rid of that and returned the breath weapon back to its old PHB version, which again, one more time, say it with me, was garbage. It was really bad. It dealt like a 1d10 plus your character level in damage determined by your draconic ancestry, which is like 5 plus 5 at level 5, which is like 10 damage at level 5, and then 15 damage at level 10. And it's like, okay, at level 10, if I'm going to deal 15 damage in an AoE, I might as well do something else. It was bad. You could use it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest, but it still wasn't as good as the original Fizbin's version, which is weird because Fizbin's, again, released within the past year. It has not been a long time since Fizbin's came out, so why would they change it so drastically in UA number 1? Well, for obvious reasons, that was received very badly. Thank you, Ryan Vox, for repeating after me. So the feedback on the Dragonborn was bad because we clearly got a better Dragonborn just a few months earlier. So, as the feedback would change, so does the Dragonborn. The Unearthed Arcana number 3 returned the Fizbin's Dragonborn breath weapon. Almost word for word, I'm pretty sure, verbatim. By the way, I forgot to point it out with the Ardling, but before these UI used to say Dragonborn or species blank or species traits, just straight up. Now it says species adventurer traits. This is probably just to distinguish that if these creatures or if these species appear in some sort of monster stat block in the books, they might have different abilities, and this distinguishes like adventurers have this very specific stat block and not what's in the monster manual. So, you know, just a if I write yellow, yellow means that the words changed, but like nothing really changed mechanically. So very interesting. Another curious thing, in the descriptions of the Dragonborn from UA 1 to UA 3, they got rid of this line. When 2 Dragonborn whose scales are different colors produce a child, their offspring scales match those of one parent or the other. They totally scrapped that. I mean, it's kind of an unnecessary line. You could just kind of assume that, or just have their children be like a blend of the two. There's no real science behind it. This is the magical world. Who's going to care? So we're looking at this. The Draconic Ancestor chart stayed the same as it has for the last 10 years, and this breath weapon table. I'm just going to bump this down. So there. So it's basically exactly the same as the Fizbin's Dragonborn, which is good. The only thing that has truly changed is that you can choose between a 15-foot cone or a 30-foot line, no matter what color dragon you've chosen. So like, even if you get like, I know some dragons are canonically a line blast and some dragons are canonically a cone blast, but now you can just choose like between each one, which is, you know, interesting, a nice variant. So if you want to have like a black acid cone or a black acid line, that's entirely up to you. If you got to shoot a little bit farther down the hallway, you choose the line, but if you want to spray it in front of you, you choose the cone. Nice flexibility there. And the damage is the same as Fizbin's, which is great. Damage resistance has been the same since the PHB. Dark Vision, which is good, which the player's handbook Dragonborn did not have, is interesting. They now have Dark Vision. And something entirely new, which reminds me a lot of the Fizbin's Gem Dragon, is Draconic Flight. When you reach 5th level, you learn how to channel the magical energy of your Draconic ancestry to give yourself temporary flight. As a bonus action, you sprout spectral wings on your back that last for 10 minutes. That's crazy. 10 minutes. Or until you're incapacitated or you track your wings as a bonus action. During that time, you have a fly speed equal to your speed. Your wings appear to be made of the energy used by your breath weapon. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish your long rest. So this is the Aasimar wings, the Protector Aasimar wings, by the way. But a bonus action in 10 minutes. That's crazy. There's no damage attached to it, so you're not going to get that bonus radiant damage at the Aasimar gate. But this is a really long time. 10 minutes is fantastically long. Even the Gem Dragon from Fizbin's only lasted for 1 minute. It did have a hover, but you know, whatever. So now it has a 10-minute. So now Dragonborn can fly, and I don't know if that's ever been canon. Someone could tell me. Someone who knows Faerun lore better than I do, or even like Abir Torul lore better than I do. Feel free to tell me if that was ever possible. No mention of tails, by the way. Someone mentioned it in chat. I see you. Fantastic. Yeah. So cool. This is a good Dragonborn, right? This is a Dragonborn people like. Yes, no, maybe. Tell them in the survey. Flexible cone shape, good damage, resistance, dark vision for Dragonborn, and Draconic Flight, which is 10 minutes fly once per long rest. I think that's a good stat block. I think that's a great stat block. So, to each his own. Finally, we have the Goliath. Now, the Goliath were a surprise because they're not in the player's handbook, right? They're not even there. They don't even exist in there. They come much later. I want to say Volos, but I'm not positive. It might be Elemental Evil, where Goliath first make their first appearance. Sometime in Rime of the Frost Maiden, they got cold resistance, and then in Monsters of the Multiverse, they got their most recent iteration, which is earlier this year, which is crazy. So Goliath have always been one of my favorite races, species in D&D, because they're big, they grapple well, they got a resistance, and they're just like really charming, which is fantastic. And Stone's Endurance, underrated. So good. Such a good feature. It's free health. You use a reaction to cut the damage by d12 plus your modifier, potentially reducing it by 15 damage, a number of times equal to your PB per long rest. That's a fantastic feature. And people don't play Goliath much in D&D, but they will now, because the Goliath are very, very strong. So you can read this if you want. They bear the blessings of the first giants, yada yada. They don't really have much of a backstory. In 5th edition, Goliath have almost no history, which hopefully will change. I think there's a new book coming out that'll tackle giants and Goliaths. But now, instead of having Stone's Endurance, which is Stone's Endurance is like very specifically the stone giants, they have, first of all, 35 feet. Spooky. What the heck? They can run fast now? I mean, it makes sense because they're really, really tall, but there are other races that are really, really tall, and they don't have 35 feet run speed, which is funny. Anyway, instead of just being tied to the stone giant, they now have giant ancestry. And you can choose a chosen benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you can regain the expended uses you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So you choose one of these to be your giant ancestry. See, this is why they couldn't pick ancestry, because they're using it here and they're using it here. So animal ancestry here, and then draconic ancestry here, and then giant ancestry here. So ancestry couldn't be the word. It has to be like species was the one left after all those were chosen. Lineage also means something in custom lineages and the Gothic lineages from Van Richten's. That's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, 35 feet move speed. Stone's Endurance stays, by the way. This is still an option if you just want to play plain old Goliath. Cloud's Jaunt, Cloud Giant, lets you teleport 30 feet, PB times per long rest. Fire's Burn lets you add a d10 fire damage to an attack roll, PB times per long rest, so that could be 2 to 5 d10 damage per day, which is great. Frost Chill lets you deal another 1d6 cold damage and reduce its speed by 10 feet. That's like a little bit of that's like a ray of frost hit, which is really good. No, situational, but still thematic. Hill's Tumble. When you hit a large or small creature, you can knock it prone. This one's wild. I don't know if you guys saw this, right? This is a free knock prone, no check, no save, no counterplay. If you hit a creature and deal damage, you can knock it prone. That's wild. That means your second attack is automatically at advantage, and everyone who follows you before they stand up gets advantage. This is a very, very, very good feature. Goliath is going to be fantastic. Stone's Endurance. Oh, that's true, Fernando. This might be a reference to them just being innately athletic. Sure. I'm not going to complain about Goliath buffs. You won't hear it from me. I am a Goliath character enjoyer. I've played 2.5 Goliaths, 2 Goliaths and a half Goliath, and enjoyed it all the way. Anyway, Stone's Endurance is exactly the same. Is it? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. And Storm's Thunder, as a reaction, you can deal 1d8 thunder damage, retaliating when you take damage, which is very fun. And then large forms start. So, by the way, after all that, I'm sorry, my bad. After the 35 feet move speed buff, and after you got all these choices as giants, there's still large form. I'm calling back. If you look to the left, you can see Giant's Might Rune Knight, which is very familiar. At 5th level, you can, as a bonus action, you can change your size to large. 10-minute transformation. Advantage on strength checks. Speed increases by 10 feet once per long rest. So you can be a large creature. Advantage on all strength checks. Speed increases by 10 feet. This man, woman, giant, Goliath person was made to grapple. Made to grapple. You get that movement speed that's really important because you're slowed when you grapple. You have advantage on strength checks. Your changing size to large allows you to grapple huge creatures. And this lasts for 10 minutes, not even maybe just one combat, possibly two. Very good. So good. For people like me who really, really like to grapple, this is a fantastic feature. Wow. So good. Actually, wait. You have advantage on strength checks? Wait, grapple doesn't use strength checks anymore. Okay, never mind. I take that back. This is not necessarily good for grappling. It would have been good for grappling in 5th edition, but not in OneD&D. Totally forgot. And then powerful build. Oh, my bad. You have advantage on any saving throw you make to end a grapple condition on yourself. You count as one size larger, which is wild. You count as one size larger when determining your carry capacity. On top of large form, your count is 2 sizes larger than a normal medium creature. This is interesting because it doesn't say you have advantage on grappling. You just have advantage on getting out of grapples, which I guess is like a balance nerf. Make sure that being large isn't too powerful. I won't knock them. Overall, very strong changes for Goliath for people who like specifically building for like damaging bad people. These are all like damage leaning, combat leaning abilities. Tying people down with grapple, slowing them down with cold. A great glow up for the Goliath, and I'm very, very excited to play one in OneD&D. So, yes, cool, nice. That is all the species. My bad. That is all the species in the OneD&D UA number 3. Bouncing over to the chat, what would you guys like to discuss next? Because I have quite literally everything written out. Yes, Eden. I noticed that. So you don't have advantage on grappling from advantage on strength checks because grappling is no longer an ability check. It is based on your ability to hit their AC with an unarmed strike. Well, the get big feature from the Durgar, you're asking why they don't get the Durgar feature, that's a spell. It's innately tied to the enlarge reduce spell, but it's only the enlarge part. And I don't know. I don't like casting spells. I don't think that's normal. Goliath should just have an innate ability to get big. They shouldn't need to know a spell and concentrate on it, especially. Like, that seems silly to me. Okay. Monkey Bubble said, Cleric, please. Guess we're going over Cleric. Wonderful. And anyway, I know some Ryan Vox, you said, let's go over spells. We'll get to it when we talk about Clerics. So, almost, absolutely. So, let's actually look at the UA first and look at the introduction to this before we really dive deep into what this all changes. So, let me get over to the actual, like, Unearthed Arcana, because there's a couple really important things I want to discuss before we really break down what's changed. Let's see here. This is going to talk about the Cleric class and specifically the life domain. Yada yada. This stuff isn't very important. This stuff isn't very important. This stuff is not something I'm going to read. You guys can read it on your own time because it doesn't change much. Classic groups. So we're finally going into the first priest of the classic groups. We went over all the experts, the Bard, Ranger, and the Rogue, which was UA number 2. UA number 3 is only the Cleric. And maybe we'll get to the Druid and Paladin later. Not necessarily. And they've all confirmed that the Artificer is an expert, but will not appear in the player's handbook for whatever reason. At least they're acknowledging that it will exist, but not in the capacity of the player's handbook, which is silly to me, but, you know, whatever. This is not important. All of these are not important. Cleric. We could talk about this. Great. Cool. Okay. That's all really. I guess it wasn't very important to look at the UA. Let me just bump over to here. So let's talk about Cleric. Cleric. Wonderful. Okay. So from the top, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit for the first part. Great. So Clerics draw power from the realms of gods to harness it to work miracles. That is the concept of the Cleric. They're not a paladin. They're not tied to an oath or anything like that. They simply pull from the divine realm, whether it be from one god or many gods or a being that is not a god but still relatively divine. Clerics pull their power from there and are innately very powerful casters. They tie themselves to temples or shrines. Harnessing divine magic doesn't rely on studying or training. Yet a cleric might learn formulaic prayers or ancient rites to help them focus their minds and spirits of drawing power from the outer planes. Nothing about this says that it's specifically tied to anything specifically good or holy. They could lean towards evil things as well, and they make it a very, very strong intention to not lean too hard into cleric equals good kind of mentality. You can mostly avoid that. You're still doing a lot of radiant damage, but you can still flavor radiant damage as evil-ish damage. Oh, indestructible. You're not ready for this, man. You're not ready for this. I spent a good amount of time on this. Creating cleric. This is the chart. Looks kind of familiar. There's a couple familiar words here, sort of, maybe. You'll notice that the prepared spells for level are exactly the same. Cantrips are exactly the same, but some of these are in a weird order, and we're about to compare what really changed about them. So I'm going to bounce over to here. You know, for a long time, I've been like a OneNote, not OneNote. I've been a Notion voucher, as in like I use Notion for everything, but just for UA or reviewing UA on a stream, OneNote's formatting is much more solid. By the way, welcome Darren to the chat. I forgot to say welcome. My bad. I just saw your comment and got excited. Anyway, a little explanation of this chart. Ignore Wiv in the corner. He's kind of wrong here. Yeah. Ignore anything Wiv is saying. Can I change Wiv? Nope. Guess not. Okay. He'll just stay like that then. Anything in blue means it was moved up, so you get it earlier. Anything in orange was moved down, so you get it later. And anything green is new. I guess that's a good word. New is a good word. So you'll notice, first and foremost, Channel Divinity was moved up. It used to be at level 2, but now you get Channel Divinity at level 1, which means that multiclassing one level into Cleric will not get you your subclass. Subclass was moved to level 3, which we'll get to in a second. But you will get Channel Divinity, you will get Spellcasting, you will get Medium Armor, you will get Shields, all that good stuff. You will get the Spellcasting of a Cleric. There's a whole lot you get right at level 1 from the Cleric, which is still fantastic. It's still a really good dip, all things considered. Level 2 is Holy Order. And Holy Order I can very generally describe as some sort of fighting style-esque option, which is, you know, it's something in itself. The Cleric subclass you get at level 3, and this has now been standardized across all classes apparently. At level 3, level 6, level 10, and level 14 is when the Cleric will get their subclass features. It used to be level 1, 2, 6, 8, and 17, I believe. And 8 was kind of a fake feature because it was always one of two things. So it has been standardized. People feel certain ways about that, and flavor is kind of missed out on. I do understand their point in saying that having a new player at level 1 get all of the new Cleric stuff, which is still a lot, plus their subclass on top of that, so they have to study like 6 or 7 different subclasses. I get it. That is confusing, and I won't knock them for that. So Cleric is still exciting at level 1, just not as exciting as it could be. And for multi-class enjoyers like me, I will miss out on the 1-level Cleric dip. But, you know, who knows? Smite Undead is an entirely new feature at level 5. We're going to get into that. Destroy Undead, in contrast, is gone. Blessed Strikes, originally a subclass feature, almost always. Oh, it was an optional feature from Tasha's Blessed Strikes that you would get at level 8. Now it comes in at level 7. Holy Order, again, comes in from level 2, again at level 9. There's 3 options, and now at level 9 you can pick a second one, so that's still new. Subclass feature kicks in at level 10, which is strange because after level 8 originally, you'd have a huge gap between level 8 and level 17 where you would get nothing from the subclass, and now it's kind of spread out more evenly. Divine Intervention used to come in at level 10, now it comes in at level 11. I missed something in chat. Someone subscribed, I'm sure. If you subscribe, type something in chat. I need to know who you are, but I missed the notification, and I'm not good enough at OBS to know who it was. Okay, don't worry about it. 12th level, the feat comes in. 13th level, you get nothing as always, except for your very powerful 7th level spells. Destroy Undead doesn't matter. Subclass feature comes in at 14th. Feat at 16th. Greater Divine Intervention used to be a 20th level thing. Now you get it at level 18, which is way earlier. 2 levels earlier. That's wild. And then Epic Boon at level 20, which all the classes get. Cool. Nice. RIP Twilight Dip. Important point, some guy. Thank you for bringing that up. This establishes, like, this format, moving the subclass features from entirely different to entirely different levels means that any idea that these classes are backwards compatible, that you could take any 5th edition subclasses and plug them into OneD&D, has been totally wiped. Because could you imagine bumping around the level 1 and level 2 features to level 3 and level 6, and bumping around the level 6 feature to level 6 feature stays the same, bumping around this level 17th feature to level 14? There's no balance. There's no concept of balance in that. You can't preserve that. They have to be reworked and reworded to make sense at the levels that you get them at. So converting 5th edition clerics to OneD&D is going to be a trial. It's going to be difficult. So pretend that they never said that, because it's dumb to imagine that these subclasses from 5th edition will mechanically be compatible with the ones in OneD&D. Cool. Der Huzad, thank you for subscribing. It's you. Wonderful. Okay, cool. So with that out of the way, this is the new cleric format. Now we're going to get to each feature, and look at this. Whoa. Hold on. No, let me do this right. There you go. I'll sort it out. Come on, OneNote. There it is. Great. On the left, you have the new OneD&D cleric features. On the right, you have their most clear, similar analog to the 5th edition. And you'll notice as you compare them that levels have been jumbled around and things have been pulled from different subclasses and different base classes. And this is the easiest way for me to understand it. So I hope it works for all of you. The hit points, hit dice, hit points at first level and after first have not changed. There's a couple new words here that don't really mean anything. It just means that whenever you level up in Cleric, you get these hit points. And we've already known that, so nothing changes there. Proficiencies and tools and simple weapons and skills have not changed at all. They provide examples here, which is nice, but we don't need them. But all of this is exactly the same. So at the very 0 level foundation, clerics are the same. Starting equipment, they have recommendations, and they very explicitly say 1d10, 110 GP if you don't want to calculate anything, which is, I believe is basically just this. If someone wants to do the math for me, is it 105 or 110 average? This is basically the same thing, and these are just recommendations, but you could choose whatever you want. That's the bottom line. Moving forward, Channel Divinity, as we've said, comes in at first level. And when you get it at first level, you have two choices. You have two choices called Divine Spark and Turn Undead. Now, we know what Turn Undead is, generally, and we don't know what Divine Spark is, but we're going to get into this. The first big change to Channel Divinity is that you can use it a number of times equal to PB per long rest. You remember Monsters of the Multiverse when they changed everything to PB per long rest and nothing really recharges on a short rest? This is one of those examples. Channel Divinity used to recharge on a short or long rest in the player's handbook, no longer does. We used to use it twice between rests at 6th level, which was honestly really good and probably a little bit stronger than PB per long rest, if we're being honest. But now it's all PB per long rest, and it's the easiest way to understand that, so be it. Whatever. That's the big change to Channel Divinity. You get more uses right at the get-go, and as you level, it scales with you. The first new thing that clerics have is Divine Spark. As a magic action is a new fun word that basically means your ability to either cast a spell or activate a feature of a magic item, or anything that requires a magic action. The way they wrote magic action in the rules glossary implies that there will be class features or race features that require a magic action to use, so it's not explicitly tied toward spells, it's just tied toward the concept of magic. You point your holy symbol at another creature within 30 feet of yourself, and you can roll a d8, number of d8s equal to your PB, and add the rolls together. That number that you roll, you can either restore hit points to the creature, or you can force them to make a con save and take the damage as radiant, which is neat. So right at first level, you can deal 2d8 damage. You blast somebody. You can do 2d8 damage as an action. It's not a spell, so it can't be counterspelled, which is kind of neat. Or you could just heal somebody. If you're out of spell slots and you really need to heal somebody, you get 2 free heals from this right from the start. And then as you level up, you'll get 3 or 4 or 5 free heals, which is really good. you just keep spending your channel divinity to heal people. That is fantastic. Or you could just deal damage to people. This is less consistent, obviously, because it's a con save, but it will always deal damage because it's half damage even if they pass. Pretty good. I like non-magical I like non-spell healing. Shoutouts to that Warlock, Celestial Warlock. Celestial Warlock has a cool feature that is healing, that is not a spell, so it can't be counterspelled. Really dig that. And this means you can still bonus action cast a spell if you really need to. Anyway, Turn Undead is something we're more familiar with. It is also a magic action. You present your holy symbol, and each undead within 30 feet of you must make a whiz save. I believe that is the same. And when they fail, they are no longer turned. They're not turned. Turned is not a word here anymore. They're dazed. And dazed is an interesting thing. So we're going to bounce over to the rules glossary out, by the way. and look up dazed. Let's look up what dazed is. Dazed. Here it is. Dazed, the condition. It's in green. When dazed, you experience the following effect. Limited activity. You can move or take one action on your turn, not both. You also can't take a bonus action or a reaction. There's a spell that does this, but I can't remember what it is. Is it slow or is it something else? If anyone even knows, this is officially a condition, which is cool. And now clerics can do it. So 5 points to anyone, the first person in chat who tells me what spell that comes from. But we're going to bounce over to cleric because clerics can do this now. So they're no longer turned, they are dazed, which is very interesting to me. Oop, nope, that didn't work. Let me just get this right. Professional YouTuber here. Everybody getting the spacing exactly right. It is slow. Thank you, Derek Shazad. Appreciate it. And now new things will happen. A undead creature is dazed for 1 minute until it takes any damage, or until you're incapacitated or die. So if you go out of commission, then Turn Undead will disable, and they will no longer be dazed, which is very interesting to me. It implies that you're kind of holding up your holy symbol, and it remains held up to maintain the effect, so to speak. And while dazed in this way, the only or taking an action, so they will always just be moving, and if they move, they must move farther than where they started. It used to be that a turned creature must move as far away from you, so they always had to move before. They always had to run away, and if there was nowhere they could run, they would have to dodge. That's no longer mandatory. They don't have to run. They simply just have to exist, so to speak. Tasha's Mind Whip. Yeah, that was one of them. Right. Thank you so much. Great. So now we have a code word. I was really hoping for confused, just for the Led Zeppelin to get signed in. Yeah. Well, confusion. I'm sure confusion will be rewritten. I'm positive, Tired. I'm almost positive that's going to be rewritten. To have confused, or whatever confused is, as its own condition. But we'll get to that eventually. Anyway, that's it for Channel Divinity. A lot of big changes. Again, first level ability, PB Prolonged Rest, Divine Spark's entirely new. Turn Undead has been reworded to have dazed in it. Big changes just at first level. Spellcasting. First and foremost, obviously, clerics pull from the divine spell list. They no longer have a cleric spell list. It's just divine spell list. And for people who don't know, you can only prepare a certain number of spells per level. So before, say you could prepare like 10 spells. If you really wanted to, you could prepare 10 different first level spells. You can no longer do that. There's a limit to how many first level, second level, third level spells you can prepare. And that's all written out for you. So that's a global change. It's not a cleric change. Ritual casting I wrote here in yellow because this is not this is no longer a class specific thing. Everyone can ritual cast as long as you can cast a spell that has the ritual tag. So ritual casting is more of a global thing now and is specifically tied to the spells that you have. There will be no one who has a ritual spell that cannot cast it as a ritual. Cool. Not many big changes in spellcasting, which is good because that's one of the more complicated things and we don't need it to be more complicated. Next thing is Holy Order, which is new. Holy Order is new, and again, I'm likening it to fighting styles. We have 3 Holy Orders you can choose. Just to keep in mind, you can take one of these at 2nd level, and again, you can take a second one at 9th level. So when I was reading this, I think the most easy comparisons you could make were 1st level subclass features. So the first one that gives you martial weapon proficiency and heavy armor training. Well, look at that. That's exactly the War Domain Cleric feature. You gain proficiency in martial weapons and heavy armor. Scholar's an interesting one. You gain proficiency in 2 of the following skills of your choice: Arcana, History, Nature, Persuasion, and Religion. And whenever you make an ability check with that, you gain a bonus to the check equal to your Wiz modifier. I painted this in green because that's new, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, that's new, because that's not expertise. That's a bonus on top of expertise. So the thing that I compared it to was the Knowledge Domain Cleric. Knowledge Domain Cleric could learn one of these 4 skills, which is 4 out of 5 of these skills, and you get expertise in it. So you could double the proficiency bonus to it. But theoretically, if you get expertise in one of these 4 abilities, or one of these 5 abilities, and then you get Scholar, you can add your Wiz. You can add your Wiz modifier on top of that. So say you have, if you're some weird Bard Cleric multiclass for whatever reason, you have double your proficiency bonus from expertise, and then your Charisma modifier on top of that, and then your Wisdom modifier on top of that. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. That's pretty wild. I can imagine that getting really, really high. Or you could just get like proficiency in... Well, interesting. Now that I'm looking at these... Oh, nature. No, you're right. No, someone's right. None of these are wisdom checks. This is intelligence, charisma, intelligence. So you'll never get to do the double whiz. You can never double dip on a whiz bonus. But you have... It's like... It's proficiency times 2 plus whiz plus intelligence or charisma. So I can see how that balances out because nobody really specs into 2 out of 3 mental stats. So that could get really interesting, but not too egregious if I'm doing my math correctly. Interesting. Cool. Oh, Fey Wanderer. Yes, Fey Wanderer had that. They could add their wisdom modifier to their charisma checks, if I'm correct. That'd be really neat. Cool. Thank you. And then Thaumaturge is an interesting thing. I likened it most to the Light Domain Cleric. Light Domain Cleric gets a free Light cantrip. This one gets a free Divine Spell List cantrip. Again, those were one of the 6. If I know them off the top of my head. Guidance, Resistance, Light, Thaumaturgy, Sacred Flame, and Spare the Dying. Yes. You can prepare one of those spells for free. And you can... and on top of that, you regain an expended use of your Channel Divinity. Someone did bring up the question of if you get a free first level... If you get a free cantrip from this, and you get a free cantrip from... And you get a free cantrip from Ardling. Ardling gets another Divine Spell List spell. And then you get 5 cantrips from 10th level Cleric. That's 7 Divine Cantrips, right? That's 7 Divine Cantrips. And there's only 6. There's only 6. So... so, like, what happens there? Like, there's no more cantrips to take. And I don't know if that's ever been a problem before. Where, like, a normal build of an Ardling Cleric, a 10th level Ardling Cleric has 7 Divine Cantrips at level 10, but only 6 to choose from. Yes, Ardling are in Magic Initiate too. Interesting. So, in my head, that doesn't really make sense. But something important to bring up. Maybe they'll add in more Divine Cantrips. Who knows? If they add new spells to this, that would be very interesting. This is pretty decent. I like this. This is so cool to just have on any cleric. There were some subclasses that you would only take because they give you heavy armor training. But now that every cleric can have heavy armor training if they so choose, and these were selling points for a lot of these subclasses. Like War Domain, some people took explicitly for heavy armor. For Blessings of Knowledge, some people explicitly took Knowledge Domain Cleric. But if you could just have these on any cleric, do these live? Do these survive? Do we see War and Knowledge Domain in the new player's handbook? Or will they be changed drastically enough that they can still provide good things? Interesting question. But, you know. As at 3rd level, we get the Cleric subclass. Yes, we discussed this. So every Cleric gets subclass features at 3, 6, 10, and 14. Now, instead of 1st, 2nd, 6th, 8th, and 17th. Which is homogeneous. But I think that this is a strong 1-2 start. I'm going to say Spellcasting plus Channel Divinity plus Holy Order is a strong 1-2 level start. I, for one, really enjoy first level subclasses. I'll say it right now. I really enjoy the 1 level war domain dip or the 1 level knowledge domain dip. That was my shtick. I love that stuff. I understand that it makes things complicated for new players, but not my game. What can I say? I'll probably still dip Cleric every now and then because their spell list is just so ridiculous at level 1. It is so wild that I still really enjoy it. Let's keep going. 4th level feat, nothing special there. 5th level smite undead. This is a new feature. You can cause your turn undead feature to smite the undying. Whenever you turn undead, roll a number of d8s equal to your PB and add the rolls together. Each undead that fails a saving throw against that use of turn undead takes radiant damage equal to the rolls total. This is weaker than destroy undead. Well, no, I won't say weaker. It's not weaker than destroy undead because destroy undead basically never triggers against any competent DM or against any DM that doesn't want to give you the gift of destroying undead. This is more reliable damage, and it probably won't kill the undead creature, but it'll certainly do a big number. At 2d8, no, at this level is 3d8. So 3d8 is about 14, 15 damage. That's not bad. That's pretty good. AoE, 14 damage. Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's every undead in the radius. So a 30-foot AoE radiant burst is pretty neat, and it's no longer tied to a CR. So actually, I prefer Smite Undead. I never really got used to Destroy Undead unless the DM gave it to me as a gift. So, yeah, you know, it's better, but is it exciting? Destroy Undead had that real visceral feel of I'm just wiping a room, and that was really, really sick. Smite Undead might do the same thing at a much smaller scale, but a much more reliable scale. So, 6th level feature surprisingly didn't change, which is great. 7th level Blessed Strikes actually comes from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Blessed Strikes existed in Tasha's as an 8th level optional feature, but now it's 7th level, and I believe nothing changed. If you deal damage with a weapon attack or one of your cantrips, deal a bonus 1d8 radiant damage. And you can do this once per round. And so you can use the feature again until the start of your next turn. So once per round. Yep. Yeah. Lots of radiant damage here. So that's 1 feature, 2 features, 3 features. Divine Spark as well. There's a damage pumped into these class features. Interesting. Okay. 8th level stayed the same. 9th level, again, you get to choose a second option from the Holy Order. So you can have 2 of these, which is neat. Where is it? Yeah, 2 of these Holy Orders. You could have Protector and Scholar, or Scholar and Thaumaturge. I'm going to be honest. I would have preferred if they just expanded these or made them cooler. So like, if you chose Protector at 2nd level, you get this cool 9th level feature. If you get Scholar at 2nd level, you get this cool 9th level feature. And then Thaumaturge, you get this cool 9th level feature. And then maybe like at 8th level, like right before 9th level, you'd have the option of switching out from Protector to Scholar or Scholar to Thaumaturge, because your build will probably change from your early levels to your later levels. And I think that'd be neat. So you get like Protector plus at 9th level or Thaumaturge plus at 9th level. I think that'd be cooler than getting 2 of them, but that's just me. Because at 9th level, I don't really care about having another cantrip. And I guess this would be neat, but like, this is like not mandatory. The Scholar is not mandatory at all. Most clerics are going to take Protector plus Thaumaturge. Almost guaranteed. I guess I could see the use of getting proficiency. But it's not going to... But these aren't your major stats, right? It's not... Charisma and Intelligence are not your major stats. I don't know. This is definitely flavor, but if from an optimizer standpoint, this or this, that's the usual combo. But I'd rather they just upgraded. You know, I think that would be sick. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Indestructible. Play the Forward Domain Cleric for 3 years, destroy undead triggered once. Yeah. When you pop Destroy Undead, it's a gift. Your DM is like, hey, you haven't used this feature in a long time. Would you like to see it used? Here's a room full of undead. You know. Not my favorite. Let's keep going. 10th level subclass feature, which is exciting because you used to get Divine Intervention, which, you know, getting it at 10th and getting it at 11th is pretty much the exact same thing. This actually hasn't changed at all, I don't believe. Yes, this hasn't changed at all, but the intervention can now happen in 2d6 days versus 7 days. 7 days is a long time, by the way. So the average is still 7, but you can get it in as early as 2 days or as long as 12 days. Really depends, which is great. Nothing has changed for... Nobody's seen this. Nobody sees this. There you go. 12th level has not changed. 14th level is neat because there used to be a huge gap between 8th level subclass and 17th level subclass features. Now you can just get it at 14th level, which is nice. 16th is still feat. 18th level, you get your 20th level divine intervention guaranteed success at 18th level, which is really good, and I enjoy that. And now the duration is shortened from 2d6 to 2d4, so guaranteed within 8 days, which is nice. 19th level feat, and 20th level, as all classes do, they get an epic boon of their choice at 20th level. And that's a cleric. You know, there were more dramatic changes in other subclasses, but I think the whole rearranging of this, the big change in this one is that the subclass was moved from 1st level to 3rd level. So one of the most exciting things about subjective, of course, as you're listening to this, exciting is the subjective word. One of the more exciting things about when a new cleric was released is the 1 level dip worth it, right? is the 1 level, 2 level dip of cleric worth it? And when Twilight and Peace Cleric came out, everybody was second guessing whether that was a fair thing to have. Now, if you choose to convert for whatever reason, Twilight or Peace to OneD&D, that feature comes in at 3rd and 6th level, which is way later. So, worth a thought. I think that Cleric level 1 is still a fantastic dip for all the divine spells you get, especially... Oh, this is a perfect time to bring it up. There are new Cleric spells, or changed Cleric spells. So let me open that up for you guys. And we'll discuss Life Cleric after that. So, in this Unearthed Arcana, there have been 4 or 5 changed spells, and I have the new spells here. Let me take that. There you go. The first new spell to change is Aid. Aid's a good spell. I don't know why I put the changes on the right side this time. Let me just color code this so you guys don't get confused. There. The changes are on the right side. PHB Aid is good. It's a very good spell. 1 action, 8 hours. You give people max and current HP boost by +5. That's 3 creatures, get a +5 bonus. As a 2nd level spell, it could pick up 3 people with 1 action. It was pretty darn great, and it lasted for a good long time. 8 has been changed, and I would reckon to say nerfed just a little bit. You can now target 6 creatures, which is technically double, which is great. If your party is 6 people strong, that's definitely a boost, and they get 5 temporary hit points. The downside to this, obviously, is that they do not get picked up from when they're down. So you cannot wake somebody up from 0 with 8 anymore, which is a bummer, because sometimes you got to make that choice to boost one person or the other, and you can no longer do that. That said, you do have that new channel divinity that allows you to heal somebody as a magic action. So if you heal somebody as a magic action, spend a channel divinity to give them a couple of d8s as health, and then bonus action healing word and heal somebody else, you could possibly pick up 2 people with 1 turn. So I will say Divine Spark does cover for what Aid used to do, but it's an important thing to bring up. Yeah, and you can't stack more temp HP. Cleric fighters can action surge channel divinity. Yeah, pretty good. Banishment. Big changes to Banishment. This is a divine spell, so clerics still get access to this. The range has been decreased. Let me not bump that down, actually. Range has been decreased to 30 feet, which makes it way harder to cast because you gotta get a little closer. But I don't mind that, because personally, I'm not a big fan of Banishment. I don't like using it on my players, and I don't like when they use it on me. So, call me cranky. Still lasts for 1 minute, still takes an action, still a 4th level abjuration spell. They don't use the word banished anymore. Banished is not a technical term, so they don't use it. The biggest changes is that it has been drastically nerfed. At the end of each of a banished creature's turns, the target can repeat the save, ending the spell on itself on a success. So it's no longer helpless for a minute. When you're banished, you're no longer helpless for a minute. You can try to fight your way out of that, which is, something a lot of people like. I don't like trapping a player for a minute because they'll just leave the table and grab lunch, and they'll come back whenever they get unbanished. So that's no fun at all. This repeat save does make the spell much less strong. Wow, it's so much less strong now that it's not permanent. And it does no damage. It's like, Is this really worth it? Hard to tell. The second big change is that if the spell lasts on the target for 1 minute, if somehow, some way, they manage to fail 10 saving throws in a row, which is just statistically unlikely. It's just very, very, very unlikely to fail 10 saving throws. Somehow, some way, they just fail all 10, and the target is an aberration, celestial, elemental, fey, or fiend. The target doesn't return. It's instead transported to a random location on a plane associated with its creature type. So the important thing here that has been changed is that they no longer return to their home plane, which is very funny to me, because if a Fae is born in the 9 hells, their home plane, regardless of if they're Fae or not, their home plane is the 9 hells, right? A Fae could be sent to the Feywild even though they've never been to the Feywild. There are plenty of Fae that are just born on the material, right? They're just straight up born on the material, and that's not their home plane. But now, thanks to whatever your creature type might be, you get sent to that plane. So, if you're playing like a centaur, and you've lived your whole life in like Canada or something, and you get banished for 10 turns, you get sent to the Feywild. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you grew up, which is very, very funny to me. But I think that's so unlikely. Now that there's 10 saves for that minute, this will like never, ever, ever happen. This will truly like, even if the DC is like 17 or 18 and they have a really bad save on it, the statistical chance of you failing 10 saves in a row is very unlikely, and it's on any creature, not just enemies, not just on allies, on enemies as well. I don't know. This is a weird change. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't like banishment in general in terms of a game tempo stance, but I feel like there's something to change about the spell that I'm not a fan of, but I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. Could you see? But it's random, Taryn. It's random. Where are you gonna go? Random? Even on Earth, that's crazy. Even on Earth. If you were sent to a random place in the Feywild, you're gone for good. You're just straight up gone. But it's certainly interesting. Andrew Tung, is Canada in the heaven or the hells? If I have any Canadian fan base, I refuse to answer. I'll let them answer for me. I mean, you're right, but like, sometimes random is better than wherever you currently are. But like, if you're a humanoid, and most of your party will probably be humanoids, unless you're one of these new age parties that can be many creature types, you're not going anywhere. You're just gonna stay on the material. You're stuck in Canada. But if you have a party of centaurs and fairies, by all means, if you really got to get to the Feywild, you can banish each other. That'd be very funny. But that's it. That's all the changes for banishment. Bouncing down to Barkskin, we already know about this change. This happened in UA 2. Temp HP every turn, which is fantastic. It's better than an AC of 16, which is basically never useful. And Guidance. Guidance got a change. A second change. So Guidance originally was the arguably top 3 spells, top 3 cantrips, because you just use Guidance whenever you can, whenever you've got it, on whatever check you want, whenever you're trying to do anything. It was used all the time. I hear the word Guidance 10 times a session. Not the best spell design. It was changed to UA 2 to have a range of 30 feet, which is not touch, but it was a reaction that you could only use once. You could only use on a specific creature once per long rest, and they'd get a D4. Yes. And add it to that check, which was an interesting design. I liked that you could only benefit from Guidance once per long rest. I understood why that was the case, and this is an interesting tool to limit how many times you could use a spell. Unprecedented, but interesting. But then they changed it again. In UA number 3, they changed it to a 10-foot reaction that you could use over and over and over again. Which doesn't solve the problem. Which doesn't solve why Guidance was so annoying. Guidance wasn't annoying because of combat. Guidance wasn't annoying because of combat. Guidance was annoying because whenever somebody wanted to do a stealth check, they would chuck Guidance on it. Whenever you want to open a door, you would chuck Guidance on it. Whenever you'd want to, I don't know, stealth into a place or open it or rip something open or jump over a chasm, Guidance, right? That was mandatory, and it's a must-take spell on Clerics, right? This doesn't really solve the problem. This is basically the same spell, but as a reaction. It might even be better because it's not concentration anymore. I don't know. This was a weird fix, but I wasn't like totally against it. This I don't think is the right fix. This I don't think is the right fix. I don't know what to respond to that, but it's not my favorite change to guidance because it doesn't really solve the problem. And then the problem is it was being overused in every situation with no consequence. There has to be a reason not to take guidance. There has to be a reason not to take guidance. I need a reason not to. I need a reason to have a choice that isn't guidance. But that said, if I'm playing an Ardling Cleric, I will get all the cantrips by 10th level, so +1. So I will have guidance no matter what, and the problem isn't being solved. So yeah, I don't know. Prayer of Healing. Big changes to this. No longer evocation. All healing spells have been changed to abjuration. We can get to that in a second. Up to 6 creatures of your choice within range. It used to be a willing number of creatures, but no, it used to be up to 6 creatures, but now it's a number of willing creatures equal to your spell mod. And here's the crazy part. The healing is still 2d8, which is nice. But if you remain within range for the spell's entire casting, you gain the benefits of a short rest. Whoa, that's good. That's really good. Guys, that's really good. That's so great. A short rest means you can use your hit dice. A short rest means you get your features back sometimes. Not as much as before because of the way the OneD&D is going. Yes, better Catnap. Catnap is a 3rd level spell that my friends honestly took because there was a lot of fighters in the party and a lot of monks in the party, and they could take Catnap for that quick nap. And a lot of people kind of hand wave short rests to be that short anyway. So putting it on a spell and making it even heal as well. And look, guys, look at this. So, and a creature can't be affected by the spell again until that creature finishes a long rest. So this design concept that you can only use a spell on a creature once per long rest still exists. It's not like they got rid of it from guidance and then trashed the design concept. It's still here. So why didn't they just keep it for this? Why would they add it here and then remove it from here? This idea isn't the flawed idea. It's that guidance is hard to balance. So that was weird for me. I like new Prayer of Healing. I will absolutely use this because people love short rest. My parties love short rest. This is so good. This spell is so good. And before I wouldn't take it because it took way too long and whatever. And it also now works on undead and constructs, which is neat. They're getting rid of a lot of things that used to not work on undead and constructs because there's a lot of new construct races. So that's something to talk about. Resistance. In leagues for one of the worst cantrips, but a spell that you will definitely have as a cleric by 10th level. Casting time is no longer an action, it's a reaction. It's the mirror to guidance. It's now 10 feet range instead of touch. It no longer has material components. It is now instantaneous instead of concentration. And if a creature fails a saving throw, you can give them a 1d4 to turn it into a success. I'm pretty sure this is a whole like Talisman Warlock feature. Right? Talisman Warlocks can add a d4 to saving throws as a reaction. Pretty sure that's a thing. And now it's just a cantrip. So much for that. Talisman had like one thing going for it, and now it's a cantrip. So this is neat. I can see people taking this. I can see situations where you won't be able to use this because you're not in range, you know? So like contrary to guidance, where there's many situations where you're going to be 10 feet away from someone who fails an ability check, you might not always be in range for a saving throw. Because saving throws happen all the time in combat, and it's just like straight up impossible to be close to everybody. So this is something you really got to consider. Clerics don't really have reactions. They don't have shield. They don't have counterspell. They don't have absorb elements. So their reaction slot is kind of empty. And this would be a neat thing to have. So I'm not against this. I think this can survive the UA. I don't know if this guidance can. Maybe that's contradictory for me, coming from me, but that's my opinion, and I'm allowed to have them. Finally, the last spell is Spiritual Weapon. Spiritual Weapon got a nerf, which is this. It's concentration now, which is honestly fair. It's honestly fair. It was a must-take spell for every cleric. You can't argue with me that this was not a must-take spell. This was guaranteed damage for the whole fight. On any turn you don't heal, you put up Spiritual Weapon, you just get it going, and you fight, right? Now it's concentration. Now it fights for a slot. In contrast, it scales faster, 1d8 per every slot above second. So by 5th level, it's dealing 4d8 damage per swing. Right? Am I crazy? So 2nd level does 1d8, 3rd level 2d8, 4th level 3d8, 5th level 4d8 damage per swing plus whiz. 48 plus whiz per swing. That's a concentration spell, right? That's a concentration spell. You can't possibly have that exist without it being concentrated, because that's very good. That's very good. And your action can be used for, like, I don't know, healing or divine sparking or whatever you want to do. Just turn undead, all that nonsense, right? And something I noticed in this, which was something interesting, is that they removed the references of calling spiritual weapon a weapon. They call it a force. So you create a floating spectral force within 5 feet of the force. You can move the force, which gives me Star Wars vibes. And they just say it resembles a weapon of your choice. I'm guessing it's because people got confused. Is this a spell? Is this a weapon? Can I proc weapon features on this spiritual weapon? They wanted to preserve the name of spiritual weapon, but they didn't want to confuse people who thought it was a weapon. So, whatever. I get that. Makes sense. I still think you should be able to see the area you move the weapon to. Yes, that was removed, wasn't it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, no. It was never a thing. You never had to see where your weapon was going. It's very funny. Yeah, you never had to see where spiritual weapon was going. You could be like, go down the hallway and swing at anything you run into. Best of luck. Don't get lost. Yeah, that's probably something they can fix in this UA. That's a good thing, because swinging blindly down a hole is not a smart thing to do. Anyway, those are the changes to the spells. Pretty sure that's it. That's all the new spells, which are neat. So we're going to bounce back to Cleric, and we're going to talk about the life domain Cleric, because the life domain Cleric is different for obvious reasons. All of the features have been moved to different levels. The 1 has been moved to 3. The 2 has been moved to 6. The 6 stays at the 6. We'll get to it. A big change to the flavor text of life domain as we get into this is that they don't mention any of the names of the gods. So Shanti, Pelor, Apollo, all those names are gone because they want to make the setting agnostic. It makes sense. They also removed a lot of mentions of, like, gods. So the clerics who tap into this domain are masters of healing that use the force of life to cure many hurts. Existence itself relies on the positive energy associated with this domain, so a cleric of any religious tradition might choose it. They removed mentions of the gods of life. They removed mentions of non-evil deities, so it's no longer tied to a very specific alignment. So, like, the life domain can be evil is basically the implication of this. And they removed all of these because these are all good gods, I'm assuming. So, interesting. The life domain spells, by the way, this is no longer necessary because you could just take Protector. Again, new stuff on the left, old stuff on the right. This is the new life domain spell list. Big notice, there's no first level domain spells. Which I guess makes sense, right? You get this at their levels, no point in having first level spells. So you could straight up just not take Cure Wounds if you don't want to, because it's not guaranteed to have it. You don't get Bless, you don't get Cure Wounds, guaranteed. You get Divine Spark, which is an automatic heal, but you don't get first level spells. Which changed that life domain no longer gets spiritual weapon. They get Prayer of Healing, which is obviously more thematic. Beacon of Hope was replaced with Mass Healing Word. No comment on that. That's okay. Guardian of Faith was replaced with Aura of Life. Again, more thematic with the healing. All of these are very, very healing focused. Guardian of Faith was more combat focused. And then Mass Cure Wounds is still there, but Greater Raise Dead was replaced with the Greater Restoration. I guess they didn't want to tie a Necromancy spell to the life spell, which is weird because Revivify is still here. So, yeah, I agree. I didn't see why Spiritual Weapon or Guardian of Faith was here. Raise Dead obviously is a very strong spell, and Greater Resto is more life-y. If any domain is going to have Greater Resto, it's got to be life domain. So, good changes here. Interesting choice in leaving out the first level spells. No particular comment on that. 3rd level, Disciple of Life. The only big change is that, and they mentioned this in the video about clerics and life domain clerics, you only get the additional hit points on the turn you cast your spell. They specifically called out good berries as the interaction here, where people used to use life berries, where every single berry used to gain additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level, which was dumb. It was silly. You had like a plus 40 heal from a single spell for a single first level spell. It was silly, but now it's only on the turn you cast a spell. I think that's a good balance change. It makes a lot of sense. It does ruin that specific interaction, but I'm not too hurt by it. It also affects spells like Aura of Vitality. It also affects spells like Prayer of Healing, but Oh, it was all because Pelor was the god of war. Interesting. Okay. Moving on, Preserve Life. This used to be a 2nd level feature, but now it is a 6th level feature. Yes. The only change to this, which was your ability to kind of spread the hit points among all of your hurt allies, which is really neat and always a really good channel divinity. Now it works on undeads and constructs, which is neat. So they got rid of this line that stops it from working on zombies and robots, and you can use it on anybody. Your holy magic transcends non-bionic creatures. Continuing on, 10th level is Blessed Healer. It used to be 6th level, so you're noticing that all of these were bumped back in levels. So in theory, Life Domain did get a nerf subclass wise, because 1st is now 3, 2nd is now 6, 6 is now 10. You get this last one earlier. We'll talk about that soon. But let's look at it again. When you cast a spell with a spell slot, this is a very specific call out to an interaction. It used to be when you cast a spell 1st level or higher that restores hit points. Now it's when you cast a spell that with a spell slot. This is specifically for items like Staff of Healing. Staff of Healing would give you spells that allow you to heal people, and it works with Blessed Healer, but it no longer works with the new OneD&D version because you're not spending a spell slot on it. And again, it has this caveat of on the turn you cast a spell, very similar to Disciple of Life. So you can't use it. You can't avoid the Disciple of Life benefit using Blessed Healer. Good Berries doesn't work on this either. That's that. And then Supreme Healing, it used to be 7th level, so you're getting it way earlier. And again, they're making sure that you're not using Staff of Healing. You have to use a spell slot to get this benefit. This is just a wording change. It doesn't mean anything. You restore the highest number possible. That's the word. You restore the highest number possible for each die every time you cast a healing spell with a spell slot. And that's it. That's the Cleric, right? Did I miss anything? That's the whole Cleric. That's the whole Life Cleric. And that's all their new spells. Oh, by the way, while we're here, we can talk about this. New spell schools. So these are all the spells to change schools. I can zoom in on this. The most obvious thing, as I scroll down this, is that all of the healing spells are now evocation. Literally all of them. And there's a couple that changed from, like, for whatever reason, blindness, deafness was necromancy. Now it's transmutation. I still don't know if that's the right thing, but Flaming Sphere used to be conjuration. Now it's evocation. I don't know if I agree with that. Stone Skin is now transmutation, which makes sense. Glibness is now enchantment, which makes sense. Telepathy is now divination. I can kind of agree with that. Yeah, sending used to be evocation, which made no sense. Now it's divination. Telepathy is divination. Makes sense. They match each other. And then dancing lights is illusion rather than evocation. Interest. If you can hear me. Yes, 1, 2. Can you guys hear me? Check 1, 2. Am I still here? Am I still here? Hello. Great. I got a disconnection notice and I was worried. Cool. Someone smarter than me can tell me why these changes matter in the long run. I'm assuming it's interactions of, like, you can take one abjuration spell or one enchantment spell. It really depends on how, like, Arcane Trickster and Eldritch Knight pan out in terms of spell schools, but I think a lot of these make sense. Cool. Great. Okay, and that's that. Those are the species. Those are the classes. We can go over the rules. There haven't been too many changes to rules, but I can certainly go over them. Let me zoom in on this. I have listed every single thing from the rules glossary of UA2 to UA3. I believe, yes. This is the old one, so I'll color this to be the old one. Left side, UA2. Right side, UA3. If there's anything colored, that means there was a change. So we're just going to scroll down. Ability checks, no changes. Arcane spells, only wording changes. They only specified that now you can see their spells level, name, and school of magic, and obviously they list out all the spells. Yeah, not the big change. Armor training, no change. Artisan tools, no change. Attack action, a singular change. You can equip or unequip one weapon before or after any attack you make as part of the action. Now it says you can equip or unequip one weapon before or after each attack. This is mostly just a clarification change that, like, if you weren't sure what this means, it means this. Before or after each attack. It basically saying, don't worry about the specifics. You can you can pull out the weapon you need to. Any attack could imply like one attack. Each implies all attacks. That's the only change. Attack roll, same. Blindside, same. Climb speed, same. Creature type, same. D20 check, same. Dash action, same. I still have feelings about dash action and all the movement stuff, but we'll get to it. Dazed, again, new condition. Limited activity, you can take a move or one action on your turn, not both. You can also not take a bonus action or a reaction. This is interesting in the case of Turn Undead because it specifies with your action, you can only use the move. You can only use the dash action. So the choices of someone hit by Turn Undead is to move or use your action to move, which is very funny to me. Difficult terrain has not changed. Divine spells have the same change as the arcane spells, which is nothing. Exhaustion exactly the same. Expertise the same. Fly speed the same. Gaming set the same. Small changes to grapple. And I always have feelings on grapples, but you know, whatever. It now says while grappled instead of while you are grappled. They're just shortening it. There's no mechanical changes there. As clarification, the grappler can carry or drag you when it moves, but the grappler suffers the slowed condition while moving. So the slowed condition isn't, as some people thought the slowed condition applied to the grappler the entire time they're grappling, which is not the case. The slowed condition only affects the grappler when they're in motion. And I guess this helps clarify that point. And they clarified this. The condition also ends if the grappler is incapacitated or if something moves you outside the grapple's range without using your speed. Now it says if something removes you from the grapple's range, which is just a faster way of saying exactly that. Gets rid of this weird, confusing part without using your speed. Now it's just as long as you're removed from the range of the grapple, you're good. Yeah. Help action has not changed. Heroic inspiration has not changed. Hidden condition. They forgot a period in the hidden condition. This is a real thing, and this is not a typo from me. They just truly forgot a period here in the original hidden condition in UA2. Now it's there. Good catch. I wonder if someone sent feedback about this. You forgot the period. That'd be very funny to me. Hide action is exactly the same. Incapacitated. No mechanical changes. Influence action. So there's a couple really nuanced changes to the influence action. The influence action, again, is how you can mechanically adjudicate social interactions. So it used to be you could try to influence another creature to do something you request or demand. The something has been clarified to do one thing. Because if someone says to do something, it could be like organize a party. That's a very big something. This clarifies it to one thing or course of action. A little more strict on what the something is. Otherwise, things for friendly. They got rid of a couple of things here. Friendly creatures often help happily. If an element or personal risk involved, a successful charisma check might be required to convince a friendly creature to take a risk. Instead, they have friendly creatures often help happily with the charisma check succeeding automatically. This says basically you don't even need to roll the check. And they change might be to is usually. Not that means anything in particular. It's just, you know, whatever. Hostile has this. They removed the word challenging because why define? There's no mechanical definition to challenging. You know, challenging is subjective. So they got rid of that word. A lot of this is boring hoopla. They got rid of this, which is interesting. If so specifically in the influence action, if the interaction is especially suited to the creature's desires and outlook, the DM might grant advantage to your subsequent check, or it might temporarily shift a hostile creature to indifferent or an indifferent creature to friendly. They got rid of the advantage because I think they put it... Yes, they put it here. You have advantage on the check if the creature is friendly, and you have disadvantage on the check if the creature is hostile. So instead of making it complicated and saying you get advantage here, but disadvantage here, they just remove the options to get advantage and disadvantage from things that are... The concept of things being... The DC being higher for... depending on a creature's... in relationship with you is already established. There's no need to complicate it with more advantage or more disadvantage if you're already setting DCs in particular. So they simplified that, and now you just have advantage or disadvantage if they're friendly or hostile. That's it. And this is an interesting change, which is very small. Originally they said... Yes, originally they said animal handling being reserved for beasts and monstrosities. But someone probably sent back the feedback of, if the creature can understand me, do I still use animal handling? Would I use persuasion instead? So the answer to that is here. For animal handling, you could gently coax a beast or a monstrosity, or you can use persuasion on a creature that can understand you. This table is entirely gone. This table is gone. This table is what replaced it. So there's no more DC 10 or 20 checks. It's just advantage or disadvantage, which is a significant change from what was in UA2. I don't know how many people have playtested this already, but it has since changed. And the DC for the check is a minimum 15 or the creature's intelligence score, whenever it's higher. So this is the new DC. It's not 10 or 20. It's just 15 or the int score of the creature. There it is. A bit off topic, but did you see Chronicles of Eberron? I have not. I don't know what that is, Archmagister Hikaru. I have no idea what that is. But if you could tell me, that'd be wonderful. Invisible. We're moving on. If a creature can somehow see you, as with blind sight, you don't gain this benefit against that creature. So, correct me if I'm wrong. This targets the conversation that a creature that is invisible always has advantage. And attack rolls against them always have disadvantage, regardless of if they can be seen by creatures that can see past invisibility. Because originally invisible was codified to say you have attack rolls have disadvantage on you, and your attack rolls have advantage, and it didn't say with any caveat if creature could see you or not. It didn't matter. You just have that benefit. Even if the entire room is filled with creatures with blind sight, you always have that advantage, which never really made sense. Now it says, if a creature can somehow see you with blind sight, you don't gain this benefit, which is good, which makes sense, right? If you're in a room full of dragons, you should not have advantage on them, right? This is a good change. The jump action had no changes, and this action is still goofy to me, but I won't get into it because nothing changed about it. If any conversations have been had about it, they've already occurred. You can probably check out my VODs for that. Light weapon property has a couple of small changes. Nothing too significant. It's just a clarification that you have to have a light weapon in one hand and a light weapon in the other hand as well. Yeah, before you could kind of like... This implied that you could have a different light weapon as the extra attack, but it didn't like mandate it, which was... This is a nicer way of writing that. So no, I painted this all in yellow because there's nothing that really changed about it. So silly. Oh, big changes to long rest. Oh, so this might be the biggest change in the rules glossary. So if you zoned out, this is a good time to pay attention, because I know we've covered some boring stuff in the rules glossary. This is the same. You must have at least one hit point to gain the benefits of a long rest. This is from the exhausted condition. It already exists there, but it's also here just in case you forgot. In a long rest, you have your exhaustion reduced by 1, which is great. Before, you can't benefit from a long rest in a 24-hour period. Now it specifies after you finish the long rest, you must wait at least 16 hours before starting another one. So this rule was always very finicky because someone could say, well, I long rested Monday night and then I long rested again Tuesday morning, and technically those are two different 24-hour periods. The Monday being a 24-hour period and the Tuesday being a 24-hour period, even though the long rests aren't far enough away to be 16 hours. Now they say very specifically 16 hours you must wait before starting another one, which is good, which makes sense. a big change here is what interrupts a rest. Now, most of it is the same as what it used to be, but now it says if you cast any cantrips, any 0-level spells during a long rest, it doesn't interrupt the long rest. So you could cast, theoretically, you could cast guidance, right? You could cast guidance during your rest if you want to help somebody during their watch, or if you want to stealth around, or if you want to, like, I don't know, make something. Guidance still works during long rest, which is very interesting to me. You could, basically anything that doesn't deal damage. If you're not fighting something, if you're not in combat, then it still counts. You're still good. Now they said any other physical exertion. They clarified similar activity to physical exertion. So if you're like exercising, that's not really a long rest. So the biggest change again to this is you can resume a long rest immediately after an interruption. When you do so, the rest requires 1 additional hour to finish per interruption. So hypothetically, you're 5 hours into a long rest. You've already got the benefits of a short rest when it gets interrupted. You have a whole fight. You fight off 10 dragons, and you go back to sleep, put up your tent, grab your pillow, go back to sleep. Your rest only takes the remaining 3 hours of that long rest, plus the 1 hour of the interruption. So you can rest 5 hours, do a full fight, and then rest 4 more hours to finish your long rest. Does that make sense? That's a change. That's a big change. They're saying that you could truly like fight to the death. You could truly, because one fight just counts as 1 interruption. Your whole party could drop to 1 HP. You could blaze a whole forest down and then rest for 4 hours, or rest for even like 2 hours to get the full benefits of the long rest, which again is full hit points, full hit dice, exhaustion reduced. All that comes back. I misread it? What do you mean I misread it? So combat is an interruption. What am I misreading? Someone help me out here. Yes, combat is an interruption, and immediately after an interruption, you can finish the long rest and post. Oh no. It looks like this it's like this. Wait, let me pull up the actual PDF and I'll show you. Yeah, let me get there, because I did format it a little bit. Where? Long rest starts with L. Yeah, see, look, they're bullet points. So these are interruptions, and you require 1 additional hour per interruption. Does that make sense? So I can see some shenanigans happening here. I can see some shenanigans, right? You rest the 7 hours. You go into quote-unquote combat. Cast a bunch of spells that cost big spell slots. It lasts for like longer than 2 hours. And then spend 2 hours finishing your long rest. And you get the full benefits of the long rest, which means you get all your spell slots back, right? So you could, on the 7th hour, technically cast Mage Armor. You can cast... Death Ward. How long does Death Ward last? I have no idea. If Aid still lasted for 8 hours, you could cast Aid there. It's some shenanigans, and I get the energy. I like the energy, but I don't know if that's mechanically exactly what we need here. So that's that. I think there's points of abuse there. Definitely feels like a bag of rats situation. I don't want to delve too deep into it. So yeah, okay. So that's a big change. Death Ward is 8 hours. So yeah, you could cast Death Ward on the 7th hour and then just sleep for 1 more hour to keep it post long rest, right? So that's a mechanical thing. It's a mechanical benefit. You get a free Death Ward every time you long rest. So that's how you got to see it, right? Any spell that lasts longer than 2 hours is a candidate for rest striking, which is... Wouldn't each casting of a first level higher spell extend their rest? Yeah, but it could just be 1 big spell. It doesn't have to be multiple spells. It could just be 1 big spell. And even if you cast 4 leveled spells during your If you cast 4 leveled spells during your long rest, that extends the remaining hours to 5. And some spells still last longer than that. So, I appreciate the attempt, but I don't think this is mechanically sound. I think there's something that there's a problem here that has to be addressed. But anyway, magic action, this is what I was talking about. Magic actions can now work with features. This is kind of a caveat, so if they ever release something in a subclass that requires you to use a magic action, this is their failsafe. This is like, if we ever do this in the future, it hasn't happened yet, but if there's ever a feature, actually they have in the Cleric, I'm kidding. Divine Spark and Turn Undead are both magic actions, so this is why they included that. Yep. Move hasn't changed. Move is still dumb. Okay. Moving is still dumb. This was not new to what UA 3, but I have to say this. I have to. Where is it? Here. You have to choose which speed you're using when you move. So like, you can't, if you're moving, you use, if you're moving, say you have 30 feet of movement, right? You have to commit that 30 feet to either walking or climbing or flying or swimming. You have to choose, right? And if you want to use something else, you have to use a special like dash action to choose a different speed. So what doesn't make sense to me, and this is what doesn't make sense to me. If you're 5 feet away from a river, right? If you're 5 feet away from a river, and you have 100 feet of move speed and 100 feet of swim speed, right? You have to use you have to commit all of your movement to move that 5 feet towards the river, and then spend your dash action to swim, which is dumb. I think that's dumb, right? Does that not make sense to people? Like, if you're 5 feet away from a river and you have 100 move speed in both categories, you still have to spend your whole dash action to get into the river? It's just like logistically that. But you have a swim speed. At roll 37, you have a swim speed. Your swim speed is incredible. You could be a god in swimming, but you still have to spend a dash action to simply fall into the water and swing your arms. That doesn't make sense to my head. That doesn't make sense in my head. Like there are true superhero moments that are flying into swimming into running, where you transition through all of those, and because you're talented in all of those, you can do them seamlessly. And that's how it's worked in 5th edition, which is fantastic. But like, well, actually maybe not. Maybe I've just been ignoring the 5e rules. But like, it makes so much sense in my head how this mechanically should work that I don't understand why this is necessary. But yeah, right? So if I had 30-foot move speed and 60-foot fly speed, I'd be like, okay, so I can run for 30 feet and then I can fly for 30 feet, and that's 60 feet total, and I'm not overreaching on any of my movement speed, so it's fine, right? But now I can't do that. Now I can't run. Now if I run 30 feet, then I have to dash to fly, even though I have whole wings. It doesn't make sense. That I just fully disagree with this whole special speeds thing. There's definitely a way to write it where it makes sense, because it makes sense in my head. But whatever. So anyway, a run up to fly typically takes more than 6 seconds. I don't know. I've never flown before. I feel like it's just a flap of the wings. I feel like I can do that simultaneously while I'm running. It's not like there's no like lead up to that, but whatever. There's a way to write that, and I haven't written it down yet, but there has to be. Anyway, speaking of new things, Priest's Pack. It exists. It costs 33 gold pieces. Find it at your local Walmart. It has a backpack, blanket, lamp, holy water, ration, 7 days, robe, and tinder box. I feel like there's something missing from that. Is it like incense? Right? Isn't incense somewhere in this priest pack? Or like candles? Or like balls of wax? Something weird like that. I can't remember what's in the priest pack, but I had more than this. But whatever. Primal spells, just a wording change. Ritual casting is the same. Search acting is the same. Yes, it doesn't take me 6... Exactly, Tyron. It doesn't. Like, people... We literally... The Olympics literally has this, where people, like, they hop off the diving board and swim. That's a thing. People do that. Like, marathons exist. Incense, holy symbol, robe, holy water. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Vestments. That's the thing I forgot. Thank you. Search action is the same. Short is the same. Slow is the same. Study action is the same. Swim speed the same. Tool proficiency the same. Teleportation the same. Charm sense the same. True sight finally defined, which is great. You can see invisible creatures and objects. That's good. Good. This is all good things. This is all good things. Oh, they forgot the period. They forgot another period here. This is copy pasted. There's no way I forgot. $5 says I did not forget that period. Let's find out. True sight. This was written and not proofread. All right. $5 says there's a period missing. So period. Aha. That's going in my feedback, guys. Most important thing to remember. Don't drop your periods. Let's jump back. Unarmed strike has not changed, and that's basically the dock. I'm pretty sure. What did I forget? Feats. We can go over feats real quick. Pretty sure feats is the last thing I haven't gone over. Because I covered everything else. That's the end of the rules glossary. Yep. Let's bounce up. Feats. That is before. That is after races, but before rules glossary, I'm pretty sure. There you are. Here, the feats. Epic Boon of Fate. These are all level 20 feats that were not seen in the UA number 2, which had the enormous, like 50, 60 plus feats in it. When another creature you can see within 60 feet of you makes a d20 test, you can roll a d10 and add a number to the bonus once per short or long rest. Is that buffed? I'm doing a quick Google check. Epic Boon of Fate. Yeah, it used to be until you finish a short rest. So that roll initiative thing was not there before. So that's a buff. That's neat. Epic. So this was not here, but kind of pointless. And this is new until you roll initiative. So you can use it once per combat, guaranteed. Cool. Epic Boon of Spell Recall. You can cast any spell you have prepared without expending a spell slot, provided the spell is 5th level or lower. Once you do so, you can't use the benefit again until you finish a long rest. I'm pretty sure that's exactly the same, but I can confirm. Epic Boon of Spell Recall. That is... No. It used to be any spell. It used to be not limited to 5th level or lower. It used to be 6th and higher as well. So this is new, and this is a nerf. Bummer. And then the last one is Epic Boon of True Sight. You have True Sight to a range of 20 feet. Let's do a quick check if that is nerfed or buffed. It could probably be 120 feet, I bet. Epic Boon of 6. Nope, it's 60 feet. Perfect. So that's exactly the same. And that's it. That's the whole doc. Unless I've forgotten something, that is the entirety of UA number 3. Thankfully, I can do this in one sitting and not multiple sittings. The other UAs were monsters, and I had to separate that into multiple sittings, and that was exhausting. But this is nice. I like this. As a quick summary, changes to Clerics I'm kind of neutral about. I do like their new early features. I like Holy Order and Divine Spark. Those are neat. Changes to races. I do like the direction of the changes to Ardling. I think there's things you can fix. I like the change to Dragonborn. That's totally good. I love that they can fly. I feel like that was necessary eventually. Changes to Goliaths are massive. I don't know if the 35 feet bonus to speed is necessary, but everything else, super cool. The changes to the rules glossary, fix the movement, please. Nothing else seems too egregious to me. Dazed is a cool condition. I like having that, and I look forward to seeing how this is used in the future. And that's it. That's everything. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're here, if you're here, your family. I feel like that's been taken. I feel like that's a motto for somebody else. It's not mine. I can't say that. I have no rights to that. But thank you for tuning in, guys. Hope you have a wonderful day. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope you do have a wonderful Christmas. And if the survey for this UA comes out on the 21st, and we get the gift, a Christmas gift of a UA just before New Year's, I'll be on that too, and I'll see you then. Thank you guys for stopping by.